We're going to show you how to replace a smart selector valve on a hot spring. This particular hot spring valve or diverter valve is leaking, and the handle is very hard to turn. So we'll walk you through the process on replacing the valve and putting it all back together again with a new one. We're going to need some tools: standard screwdriver, Phillips snap ring tool, and a pair of pliers. First we'll pry off the handle. It's just pressed on. The next we're going to take off the bezel. Again, it's just pressed on as well. Sometimes the handles will snap off the top of the valve. This particular one is intact. Next thing, we're going to grab a Phillips screwdriver and take out the two small screws that are holding in the sleeve. And then we'll gently pry the sleeve off. This particular sleeve has been on here for 12 years on this 2000 hot spring, so we'll get the standard screwdriver and pry up gently in a couple different places, and we'll pull that off. And the last thing that holds the valve into place is a C ring or snap ring, and it needs a tool to be able to squeeze it together. It has holes on each end of what looks like the letter C. And sometimes you can just get one of those ends to pull out of the little groove there, and then you can pull the rest of the snap ring out. That's what keeps that valve from launching into orbit when you turn on the jet pump. Next we'll grab onto the valve stem itself and we will pull it out. You can see how the O-rings go on. There's two small O-rings and one large one, and so we'll replicate that with this new replacement here that we'll pull out of the bag. The valve itself, the O-rings, and there'll also be a little Ziploc, not really a Ziploc, but a baggie of silicone grease that we'll need to grease up those O-rings. The snap ring, we're going to replace that. If you don't replace the snap ring with a new one, the old ones are generally pretty brittle, and again, that's the only thing that's holding everything together from blowing up into the air. So the silicone grease, some service techs will just cut the corner of the bag and squeeze it out into their fingers. Others will open up the whole bag like I've done here, and you can insert the O-rings into there and work that grease around, but we'll just squeeze some out on our fingers. And you can see the old valve here, and there's a top piece that comes already put on the valve when you pull it out of the bag, but sometimes that's on upside down, so we'll show you how that goes together. We're going to put some grease on our fingers and smear it around the two small O-rings. This grease is really messy, so you want to have a paper towel or something. I like a paper towel because the rag, it won't wash off the rag. So we'll slip on the greased up two small O-rings. They'll go on first. And then we'll put the little donut piece on, and yes, I am freezing up here, but it wasn't a bee. So the donut piece has a deeper recess on the bottom side than it does on the top, and that's how it'll need to go on to the top of the valve. And then we'll get some more grease on our fingers and finish up with the last O-ring, and that's going to be on the donut portion of it. So clean up, and so if you get this on your clothes, that silicone grease is, if you haven't ever worked with it, it's a little nasty and it won't wash out of your clothes, so you want to be careful with it. And then we'll go ahead and insert the valve back into the valve body, and we'll push that down. We'll push it down with our thumbs and get it down deep enough to where when we put the snap ring back into place, the snap ring can expand into the groove that it's meant to expand into. And then once that's done, then that'll hold that the valve in place. This particular valve is for a it's a four position valve for a hot spring. There's a two position valve that's about half the size. So, but this video will still apply to that smaller valve. Everything comes apart and goes back together again, exactly the same way as this larger one. So once we put the snap ring back into place, we'll go ahead and put the sleeve, the collar back into place. And they actually call this a sleeve, but it's two small Phillips screws. You can replace this piece as well. This one's pretty shot, but we're going to still reuse it. Place the bezel back into place. Again, that just presses down. And then we'll do the same with the valve handle. This particular valve handle is in good shape. It's not broken or cracked around here, so we can reuse it. If it was, or if the top of the valve stem broke off, you'd have to replace the lever and the bezel, which come as a kit and look a little bit different than this one. So that's it. So we'll go ahead and turn on the jet pump here and see that so everything's dry right now, and it was going to remain dry because everything went together like it should. The handle turns really nice and easy now. We don't have any water that's leaking up through there, so all is well.